Welcome to the road to growth, success of an entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, Road to Growth listeners. Today I have George. Oh, a fun topic. A topic that people are going to get riled up on. It's good to have someone here talking about it. I'm not sure legality. I mean, you could just only really talk about your own stories, right, George? How's that?
Oh no, man! I'm here to talk about everything. Let's dive deep. Let's go crazy.
So you're based in Oregon. How much Oregon, California are probably very liberal in that kind of sense too. So there's probably a lot of similarities, I would think, from Oregon and California.
Oh yeah. We're in a constant ongoing competition on the West Coast to see who can out liberal the other states. And I fancy myself really kind of in the middle politically, but around here that basically makes me Donald Trump. So but yeah, no, all these issues get a little politicized, unfortunately. And so but I really like to take a nuanced approach to really all things, but squatting and title fraud and all that stuff, that's definitely inclusive of that.
It is so crazy how this could be, a polarizing idea of someone living in your property, not paying, and sometimes not even basically being the original renter on the property. And people are like, oh, well, you can't kick them out. You got to go to the process. You got to do the eviction. And even then, they can rotate and put someone else in there, and your hands are tied. So yeah, thank you again, George, being here.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
So just give us, a brief, overview of your perception on squatting and title theft that you kind of jumped into, I guess.
Right. So I'm a 20-year real estate veteran. I've been a broker for 20 years, developer for a lot of those as well, house flips, apartment builds. And so I've just been in the real estate trenches for a good long while. And so one day, several months ago, what led me here in the whole squatting and title fraud side hustle was I made a video. It was called I Stole a House. And it was satirizing the ease with which a squatter can take control of a house in Portland, or really anywhere for that matter, and kind of went over the playbook of like what these guys are doing. And it went like massively viral. It really exploded. And I went on a bunch of cable news shows, Dr. Phil, News Nation, Fox News, like all these networks were calling me up and wanted to talk to me about squatters. And so I knew enough to be dangerous at that point because I had friends who had squatters. I had like low-level squatters myself and dealt with a little bit, but really was just fed up with how the laws were governing this crime in particular. So I went on all the news tours and I talked about it and everything. But in the process, I talked with a ton of people who had their own squatter problems and learned a lot and started noticing patterns. So I started talking to law enforcement and lawyers and just became an expert over the course of several months so that people could have a resource, someplace that people could turn to if they actually had a squatter, because all these people were just emotionally and financially devastated, but they just had nowhere to turn. So that's my goal, is to be that guy that they can turn to.
And honestly, you talk, being in the real estate field, for myself, 13 years, I've seen a lot of these situations. We've had ones where the person never lived there. They basically rented it out. They had $600 per person staying at the property. They were just making boatloads of money on a property that wasn't even theirs. And they had no affiliation, but they had a fake document and so on and so forth. So you had to do that. Yeah. And you talk to an attorney, or you first talk to the cops, and the cops go, well, we can't do anything because they have a document. Even if it's not a real document, they have a document in place. Then you go to an attorney, and the attorney goes, well, you got to go through the eviction process. You're going to pay us X amount of dollars to go through the eviction process. And even then, when you go through the eviction process, after a couple months, they could just put a new person in there. You got to start the process again. So there's not really a lot of choices to really work with. So I'd love to give your kind of insight into what's your process, or is it, what's your idea of looking at it or whatever?
Well, there's a lot of different processes. That's kind of like the short version. It really is context dependent. So in situations like you're talking about, where somebody has forged a lease, they're in there, and then you go to a lawyer and say, hey, we got to get rid of this guy. So first there's a choice. If you're an attorney, you're going to say, all right, you can either get him out through eviction or ejectment. But the thing is, the moment that you start that eviction process, like you've already lost. You've already lost because you've basically tacitly admitted that these people like have rights. They have the right to be there. So we're going to evict them in the process that we use to evict tenants, like the people that, so that's actually the first distinction you need to draw is you need to draw a distinction between non-paying tenants and squatters, because non-paying tenants, for whatever reason, they had the right to be there, but they stopped paying, and you got to evict them. So there's no two ways about that. But squatters are the people that are willfully trespassing, committed a crime. They never had the right to be there in the first place. And yet, when you go to your lawyer and you say like, hey, what should I do about this? They say, well, you can either evict them and they'll be out in like, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months, or we could go through ejectment, which is the process, also a civil process, to get rid of somebody who never had the right to be there in the first place. So of course, that's the one that you should do, right? Is ejectment. But the problem is it's a long docket process. It takes forever. And like, what are you trying to do again? You're just trying to get your friggin' house back. So you say, all right, well, I guess we'll go with eviction. But then there's a continuance. Then they get to get an attorney. Then they then they don't show up for court. And then the court gets delayed. Then, like you said, they rent it out to other guys. And then those guys actually do have a tenancy agreement. So that's why it's so context dependent. Like every situation is different, and your approach really depends on what those factors are. And spoiler alert, it's not just ejection or eviction. There's other things you could do, and I talk about that in my squatter defender training course.
So again, this podcast, it's focused on individuals that have kind of started a business, how they got to this point, and kind of where they're going, right?
Yeah.
This one being so intriguing. I mean, you see there's a issue that seems so black and white. You own the property, it should be yours to rent out, people not pay, so on and so forth. It seems so black and white, right?
Oh, yeah.
At least in my eyes. And maybe that's even a polarizing idea. And I mean, you had a background in real estate, you said, for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And you were having properties and you were having these issues. When did it come the point of time? And I know you said a couple months ago or whenever you started doing the video, but when did you actually come with the idea that, hey, maybe I can make some money off of this idea, this problem that everyone has?
Well, it was actually pretty early on when, because it was really over like the first like week or so that, all like the big explosion from the viral video was happening. And that's when I was like going on the news. It was really just, it was really a very condensed week, very stressful week. And one of my friends said to me like, hey, like all these millions of views, like how much money are you making on that? And I'm like, zero. And so he's like, oh, you should figure that out. And so I was like, all right, well, I mean, maybe, but the thing that was most important to me was being able to bring value to people. I mean, that's how you make money, is you bring value to people. And the value that I could bring at that time was basically exposing the scam. Like you can't scam somebody who knows what the scam is, right? And so a lot of people are saying like, hey, you're giving the playbook to these squatters. Like they're going to know what to do now, thanks to you. Like, you're a scumbag. And I'm like, yo, you can't scam somebody who's fully aware of what's happening. So that became my mission. I was like, that's how I'm going to create value. I'm really going to dig into these cases and figure out, like, get to the bottom of how it is you actually defeat these people, like in both the prevention, detection, and ejection, keeping them out in the first place, detecting them if they're there, and then eventually, if you do have them, being able to get rid of them, because nobody out there, not one single case, had like a definitive, like straight answer for this, because it's really operates in kind of a gray area, and that's in every single state, red or blue. So that's what I aim to do, is just basically create value for people by, having a course, the Squatter Defender course, and also just being a resource so that people can say like, all right, here's my situation. My grandma's son, whatever, didn't move out, and, I got a situation. What can I do about this? And I can say, okay, well, that's a lot like, the case I heard from this person, and here's what they did, and here's what they should have done, and basically prescribe a plan of action from there.
Do you have, because there was a person, I want to say in LA, that was squatting on the squatters. I think that was their kind of their way of doing it. And you can hire them basically to be a squatter protection, I guess, to do it for you.
Yeah.
is most of the stuff that you're selling the education aspect of it, or do you have people that are in different areas that will actually do it for the person?
Good question. Yeah, I actually do have that as part of it. So as part of the course, you get a lot of education, so you can put these things into context and make decisions for yourself. But ultimately, a really good method of getting rid of these people is just like you're saying, squatting on the squatter. And the reason for that is that it's really difficult for law enforcement to take somebody out of a house. They have to be like committing a crime. They have to be sure of it. And that's the whole scam. The squatters are making it look like they live there. And, they're casting like a shadow of a doubt for law enforcement so that, the cop thinks, well, gee, I can't just like take this person out because, they might actually live here. They might have the contractual right to live here, and then I could get in trouble. So the cop's not going to put his neck on the line to, just to, get rid of this person that one party says can be there. So, but on the other hand, so that's pulling somebody out of a house, but getting into a house, that's a whole different deal. If you move in, if I give you a lease to one of my houses and you move in, and there happens to be somebody else there, then you can make life pretty uncomfortable for them as their new roommate. You set up cameras and you basically make it so they're really just no longer welcome there. And squatters are looking for victims. They're looking for low-hanging fruit. They don't want to have resistance. And so the resistance that you put up, there's bad resistance, like, like kicking in their door with a shotgun, that's going to lead violent altercations just are a bad idea. And I really advise people to avoid that. But there are ways to go about it where you can make life pretty uncomfortable for them, and they'll leave on their own volition because it's just no longer a comfortable place where they can have a hapless victim.
So you have people like, so for example, if I had a property, I had a client here, had a property that had a squatter in there, they don't have any sort of agreement in place. Would you have someone in Southern California that I could pay to basically write a lease with them, and then they can, in essence, squat on the house?
Yeah. No, that's part of the value that I'm trying to bring to the community is being able to have a network of people, really nationwide. I mean, so I don't have everybody's in every city, but if you compare it to the costs of like, going to court, paying a lawyer,
Yeah.
having your place rented out for like 12 months, there's really no cheap way to get rid of a squatter. And the squatter, once it's been established that like, law enforcement says, yo, we're not kicking this guy out. Sorry, like you're on your own. You have to go, sue him or take him to court or whatever. Then you've got a serious problem and it's going to cost you money. And the cheapest way to go about it is just like you're saying, is to hire the contracted squatter remover and have him get rid of him.
Do you have, I mean, and I don't even know if you would, do you have a ballpark pricing of what something like that would look like?
Anywhere between like 5K and 20K. It really varies quite a bit, but sometimes it's real open and shut, but it's going to cost you a minimum of 5K.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, so that's, I mean, that's not too bad. So you're probably talking about something like $5,000 a month or somewhere in that kind of ballpark vicinity, I would guess. That's where the difference is.
It's less dependent on time and more dependent on like severity, because like there was a case down in LA where like on a property, there was like 20 RVs parked and there was like a homeless like encampment that had been there, but they had rights as squatters established at that point. So something like that is a massive bee's nest. And that is a whole different deal than like single family house, single guy who like, is a squatter who's in there. And then, the moment you go in there and he realizes like the jig is up and he takes off, those two things are going to cost very different amounts of money. But yeah, like I was saying before, it's very context dependent and very case by case dependent, but generally the strategy remains the same.
How is this, I mean, this niche, and I mean, a great niche it is. How is this niche played into your real estate business?
So it hasn't really. I mean, it's real estate adjacent because
Yeah.
we're talking to property owners and real estate investors and people that are within the community that I was in to begin with,
Yeah.
but it's sort of like an ancillary kind of auxiliary function within that group. But the main function that I'm trying to provide is to prevent or mitigate the absolute like ship sinkers, those things that will absolutely like devastate your finances. Because if you're a realtor or an investor, you're in real estate, what's the goal? His goal is to make money. And if you're in the game long enough, chances are you're going to build up a nice little war chest. You're going to accumulate some wealth. And what you want to avoid are things that completely just harpoon these things, because, toilets and tenants and like the things that cost you money as a real estate investor, like those things are bad. Like we can agree on that, but they're going to cost you like $100, $1,000. Oh my gosh, the water heater, that's $2,000. The furnace, oh man, that's $8,000. Man, this is rough. These are the things that like the average squatter, the cost of having a squatter with all the case studies that I did was between about like $50,000 and $100,000, an absolute just like devastating financial hit to these people. And these are all people that I spoke with, and they would like cry about it. They were in terrible shape over it. And sometimes these cases happened years ago. So the devastation is not just financial, it's emotional. And so that's kind of what I aim to do, is to stop the absolutes, like things that will wreck you.
No, I mean, I think you're again, I mean, I've said it a couple times. I think you're doing a great service right there, because there's not a lot of avenues people go to, because there's such a crazy nuance to these squatter laws that are in place right now. And I mean, do you feel that you might be either niched into a hole in your real estate business, or I mean, do you plan to like have your squatting and title theft business as a whole different entity, so people don't say, I mean, George is this and he's not doing luxury properties? Or has that come across at all, or no?
Yeah, it's funny. I've given that a lot of thought, and I'm so all the presence that I have, like on social media, or any exposure I get, like I think just further legitimizes my space within the real estate investing community as a guy who kind of just knows what he's talking about. And so I've got some expertise on squatting and title fraud, and I am going to keep pushing that out as a side hustle. But I also have like developments in progress. I'm building a 24-unit apartment building. I'm building an industrial park. So my regular business still continues along, and that's a great thing about being a real estate entrepreneur. You don't have to really pigeonhole yourself into one little box or one little space. I can be multifaceted, and the only thing that I think that could come up is if some people think, because I've seen people on the far left or people on the far right, they just they maybe have a different take on these things. I've had people suggest that you should just go into the house and shoot the squatters. And I'm like, okay, well, no, that's not a good idea. And then other people say like, oh, well, I think it's terrible that you're a landlord in the first place. And so I don't think these are people I would be doing business with anyway. And so when it comes to like raising money for deals and, having enough time to do my developments and my work as a like house flipper, yeah, no problem. I can totally do it. And if this whole little niche really just keeps blowing up and it becomes really super lucrative, I'll do fewer house flips because I'm doing something else. But I get bored easily, man. I need to keep doing something new and fun, and this has been a fun little side hustle so far.
Do you think there'll be a point in time where this side hustle will turn into the core of your business, or the main focus for yourself?
That would be pretty cool, because we're both entrepreneurs here, right, man? So there's fast nickels and slow dimes. You get, if you're brokering a house, you get a buyer, and then you find a house or you list the house, and then it goes under contract and you get paid, months and months later. Like a minimum timeline is going to be like a month, but really it's going to be, several months. We all know this. And with a house flip, it's even longer. Sometimes these things take a few months, but really that's, your real basic cosmetic flips. And then other ones will take 6 months or a year. And if it's a development, it's like multiple years. So these are all your slow dimes. But what I like about this model in particular is that, someone buys the course, I get paid for the course that same day. Someone buys Title Fraud Defender, I get paid that day. And if you're in real estate long enough, you get really used to all these little slow dimes being the source of your income and your wealth. But there's really not a lot of like just immediate cash, just like coming in the door. And so that's how I've kind of designed this whole thing, is like, all right, I got my slow money, because I'm going to get paid on that apartment development in like, I don't know, like a year and a half. Like it'll be nice. I think it'll pay off well and I'll make some money. But like between now and then, like I'm going to make zero off of it. And so having something that is like quick and immediate, I think that's think it's very gratifying for like as an entrepreneur to have cash that's just like, coming in with some level of immediacy. Run some ads, get some money, run some ads, get some money. And yeah, and as an entrepreneur, it's good to have your bases covered with with the fast nickels and slow dimes.
Has there been any kind of, I guess, hurdles or negative items that have kind of popped up with this, I guess, surge in viewership, and also building at the course? I mean, having these conversations, having these podcasts, I mean, or just even the idea of being the squatting guru, I guess, right? Like,
Most people that I talk to say like, hey, this is a great idea. I think it's great that you're doing this. And then also most people have never even like heard of title fraud, let alone like, like a service that can actually help you help you avoid it. Most people say like, hey, dude, this is great. I think you're going to do fabulous, because I've been a lifelong entrepreneur. I've had like a number of little side hustles and whatnot. And most people think it's great. But I've had people, some close friends who I respect very much, look me dead in the eye and said, dude, this is a bad idea. What are you doing? You can go make money in real estate like easily. Why are you like spending your time like toiling with this little thing when there's, so much more money to be made by, getting another house under contract, do another flip, do another development, do another land deal. Like, what are you doing, man? What are you thinking? And so, and to those people, I listen to them and I say, all right, well, why do you think it's going to fail? And like, what is it? Is it me? Is it the idea? And they're like, no, they all say like, we believe in you, you've got a good track record, but nobody cares. That's basically it. Nobody cares. And I'm like, disagree. If you've spent, the last several months in my skin, seeing the reactions that I've gotten from, not just the initial video, but like all the aftermath after that, it's really been telling. It's really showed me that this is an underserved market, and that's the main reason why I really kind of dug into this whole thing. And if it fails, like, that's fine. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're in real estate, you're going to have some misses. You're going to step to the plate and you're going to have some strikeouts. And if you don't, you're just not trying hard enough, man. Like you gotta keep going to the plate and keep trying to smack it out of the park. And so far, we're about to launch this thing, but I'm feeling pretty good about it, and love proving people wrong. So yeah, all the people, the doubters out there, there's only a few of them, but a lot of them are good friends of mine. But I'll make them buy me a drink to atone for their doubt.
Haven't really talked too much about your childhood, but I'm intrigued. I'm curious about, I mean, the negativity that you said you received, and a lot of people probably, I mean, hopefully not a lot of people listening here, but a lot of people out there in general, right? When you get negativity, you basically fight back or you turn the other cheek, right?
Yeah.
Where did you get the mindset of going, well, tell me more about that?
Boy, that's a tough one. But I'm a lifelong athlete. I was an athlete in high school and college, track and field specifically. And ever since then, I've always, kind of deferred to athletes and hired athletes. And, the mindset is that even if you're behind, you can win. And and it's all based on how much hay do you have in the barn? Like, it's your mental state, your physical state, how strong you are. If you have enough hay in the barn, if you've done your training, if you've done your work, then your results are going to be proportionate to your preparation. And it's true in athletics, it's true in business. And I think it's a big mindset shift for people that once they realize that, that the outcome is going to be equivalent to the work that they've put in, applied enough times, and the law of averages kicks in, you're eventually going to be successful. And so that's a mindset that I really like to teach. And it's a mindset of like resilience, of strength, and also, get a little bit deeper here, like kind of digging in to our masculine purpose as men, to be providers, to be people that are providing for our families. I take that role extremely seriously. And that's why, one reason why I work as hard as I do, and what I encourage other people to do as well.
If we were talking in 5 years from now, where do you see your business going as a whole, I guess?
It depends a little bit on, how this whole side gig goes, but, if I'm flying all over the world talking about squatters, like, yeah, that'd be great. But really what I see happening is having this be a nice little side hustle that kind of runs without me having to do a whole lot, except for like posting some videos, doing some speaking arrangements. But I'm never going to ever stop being a real estate broker, real estate investor, developer, just because it's always been what I liked. I played Monopoly a lot as a kid, and it's one thing that is never going to completely go away. Like even whenever I retire, I'm still going to have assets to manage. And if you're a real estate agent, then yeah, you're still going to like you've seen people that get a little bit advanced in the years, and they just become like principal brokers. They're like more at the top. Not everybody wants to still show homes to buyers, and so things kind of get pared down a little bit, right? And so that's kind of the goal, is to have this stuff kind of work in tandem with my real estate business, and but to continue doing what I do across the board, because I've always loved it.
And in your head, you think you balance out the three different pillars, I guess, fairly well: the real estate broker, the developer, and the squatting? Like, I mean, do you like most of your week, is it pretty evenly balanced, I guess?
Brokerage wise, I do like next to nothing. There's
Oh,
I'm not taking buyers out, but I've represented buyers for like, people that I know, business colleagues that know that I would be a good fit for it if they're buying like an investment property or someplace that I know really well. Or, and if because the phone still rings on brokerage, even though I haven't done that super actively for a while, but like I list my own stuff because I'm a real deal junkie. I love to be kind of like involved on the front lines of the deal. And so like my house flips, I'm listing those almost all the time. And if I ever have anybody else do it, it's because it's out of state, but I'm usually keeping my finger on the pulse pretty closely. So not as much brokerage, but on the development side of things, I I'm still going to keep doing that. And that is a bit of a time suck, at least on the front end of these things. But once everything's in motion, things are getting built, it doesn't really take up a whole lot of my time. So it frees me up a little bit.
well, thank you, George, for being here. I'm gonna have one last question before we go to that, but for individuals listening, and I know you're not going to get like to the, because the last question is going to be, can you give us any insight of people, what someone bought a property, how they could protect their property, and so on and so forth?
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot more information you're going to be able to say in that short window of time. So if people are listening and they want to get your class, if they want to basically find your network, what's the best way of them getting more information?
So to answer your first question about how to protect themselves when they buy a property, so I know you're representing buyers and helping people buy homes. Protecting your home equity is something that you never really had to do until recently, because up until now, people there was no real way to steal it. Well, there was, but title thieves are just now figuring it out. And so what happens with that scam is they forge a deed and they record it with the county and put the title in their name, or a fake name usually. And then they either sell the property or take out loans against the property. And how you prevent this is refreshing the page that has your title information on the county page, all day long, and making sure that title is still in your name. But that's a little silly. But my service, Title Fraud Defender, you can go to titlefrauddefender.com, input your property address, and for a few bucks a month, we monitor for you 24/7, and we make sure that nobody makes off with it. But if they do, then we help you fix it, and we alert you so that nobody actually steals your equity, because title insurance, the Alta owner's policy, doesn't cover it, and you're going to be completely out of luck. And for some people, it's a few grand in home equity because they just did 3.5% down. Other people, it's a whole lot more. It's in hundreds of thousands or millions. And right now, home equity in America, the average home equity is $300,000. And so if having that stolen from you would be financially devastating, probably would, then it might be worth the cost of an airport coffee to keep that safe. And that's at titlefrauddefender.com. And actually, special promotion for Vinny's listeners. There's a coupon code that'll get you $50 off of Squatter Defender at squatterdefender.com. That's the coupon code Vinny, VINNIE. And then at Title Fraud Defender, same coupon code gets you 20% off. So yeah, I invite you to go there and contact me on social also.
And those will be in the show notes. I believe I have his website in there. But yeah, all the information will be in the show notes right there. So if you're listening, just go in the show notes. I know I said the last one was the last question, but I'm gonna give you one last question. If you have a vacant property,
Yeah.
right? Let's say you just moved out of it, you're gonna be listing it for sale, and something I know for all our listings, we learned the hard way a long time ago is never put it vacant. And if the property is vacant, what are some tricks that you could do as a homeowner, maybe to protect himself from a squatter in there?
So the easiest one is definitely the most obvious, but it's probably a lot easier than you think it. And that's just getting a very simple burglar alarm, not like the professional install where they wire everything up. This is just a motion sensor and a base station and a camera. And at Squatter Defender, you can get a 50% off coupon and get a free camera from Simply Safe. I don't work for them, not sponsored by them, but that's what I use. But if you have a vacant property, you can put the alarm system in there. If motion sensor goes off, you get notified. You could have it call the cops. You could have it not call the cops. But it's inexpensive, especially with that 50% off coupon. And it's so simple, right? But most people aren't doing it. But the fact is, if you're a squatter and you wander into a place, the motion sensor goes off and a siren goes off, you're probably not going to stick around. Maybe you've made preparations to have a fake lease, but there's lower hanging fruit. There's easier things. There's easier people to victimize other than this person who's got the alarm. And plus the neighbors might have heard it. It's just a bad deal. So if you're a squatter, you're going to get out of there. So that's really just the first piece of advice is get yourself a really simple, rudimentary, portable alarm system, throw it in there, and you're going to solve, the vast majority of your squatter cases, and you're going to nip it in the bud.
Well, thank you again, George, for being here. Hopefully everyone got some great nuggets. There's so much stuff that we could go to rabbit holes on. Squatter, title, whatever it might be, but there's a lot of stuff out there. Go in the show notes, go find George, use the code, Vinny. Watch the videos. A lot of content out there. Just go in the show notes, go find George, protect yourself, because like George says, you probably got a lot of equity in your property right now. Don't give it away.
Don't give it away.
And if you get a squatter in there and you're basically, you still have a mortgage on the property and now you can't pay the mortgage because you don't have rent coming through. A lot of issues right there. So thank you again, George. Everyone, please subscribe, please share, and go find George.
Thanks so much, my man.